Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2024 and another experiment today where we're taking a look at what would happen if you swapped the Premier League with non-league teams. So what we've done is send every Premier League team down to either the Vanarama National League North or the National League South, and then we've taken 20 teams from those two leagues and put them into the Premier League. So you can see here that we have got Alfreton Town, Banbury, Bath, Bishop Stortford, and lots of other teams all now in the Premier League. A huge jump up for each of them. And then further down, the other leagues are still the same. So we're still expecting the Championship teams to come up, get promoted, and do really well. And then further down in the Vanarama National League, you can see, so in the National League North, we've got Aston Villa, Burnley, Everton, Liverpool, Luton, Man City, Man United, Newcastle, Forest, and Wolves and Sheffield United all in there, alongside South Shields and Spennymoor. I'm expecting a bit of a gap between the teams down there. And then in the Vanarama National League South, you've got all the London clubs, so Arsenal, Chelsea, you've also got Brentford, Brighton, and West Ham in there as well. So quite a few other teams making it in there. Crystal Palace too, Bournemouth in there. So again, expecting quite a few of them to get promoted. Now, the interesting thing about these leagues is that only 2 teams get promoted at a time. And bearing in mind we sent 20 teams down, the question is, can they keep their sponsors, players and money long enough that they can actually get out of these leagues and back up to the Premier League in time to start competing with the teams that might have established themselves up there, but also those that might be competing in European competitions. So it's going to be pretty difficult for everybody involved, but the main thing we do know is Man City are not going to be winning a 4th Premier League title in a row. So what we'll do now is we'll go forward probably 1 year, just to see how the first season falls out. Then we'll go forward 5 years to get a feel for which teams, or maybe 6 years, to get a feel for which teams have made it back into the Premier League. And then we'll go forward probably 30, 40 years to see how the table is shaping up that far into the future. So if you are new to the channel, do drop a like down below if you like the idea behind this experiment, and do make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. It really helps us grow. But let's jump forward 12 months now and see who's won the Premier League title. Well, we're a year ahead, and you can see that the winners of the Premier League were Scunthorpe. They finished top by 3 points, 5 defeats that season, but 23 games won, and they beat Torquay United to the title. Further back, you had Yeovil, then Southport, then Chelmsford, who've all made it into the Champions League group stage for next season. Then Bath and Chorley are the ones that have made it into the UEFA Europa League. Now, obviously, there's not a Conference League place given here, which means that somebody else has taken that through the cup competitions. So if we do go down a league, we'll see Barnsley, no, that's the current season, West Brom have gone up, Leeds have gone up, and Leicester have gone up, and Hull City are the ones that have made it to the Conference League, so they must have won one of the cup competitions, which is interesting. Further down, we can see if we make it into the National League North, then we have got Manchester City as winners of that competition. Man United finished second, but it's Liverpool that have gone up. And then you've also got Aston Villa, one of the teams to go into the Europa League as well. And then, unsurprisingly, a bit of a gap between the teams at the bottom. Burnley, the cut-off there, the 10th team from the Premier League in that league. And then, Sheffield United in 11th. And then everybody else falling further back behind them. And if we drop into the South Division, you see Chelsea and Arsenal, the 2 teams to get promoted. Arsenal as champions. And then no real surprises, the next 9 teams in this league taking up the rest of the spots with a good 42-point gap in that league as well. So no huge surprises over how that has come out in the end. And if we have a look maybe actually at the transfers for this season and the most valuable ones, we can see a few team transfers. Chelsea losing Malang Sarr to Monaco. But not much money spent, virtually nobody spending money in that league. And if we go up to the North League, Again, Virgil van Dijk going to Al Ittihad, but otherwise most of the players staying where they are. Not a huge amount of change. Each team probably battening down the hatches a little bit. And if we do just have a look at, for example, Chelsea's main senior squad, we'll see all the key players they had before are still there. You can see them sorted by value. So they should be fine to keep going up the league tables. Now what we'll do now, we're not going to stop and look necessarily at the competition winners just at this point. We're going to go forward another 5 years, I think, because that would get National League all the way up to Premier League for at least one team. Okay, let's go 7 years just to see who's winning the titles at that point. Let's go 7 years into the future now and see how the teams are distributed and who's winning the cup competitions. Well, we are 7 years further into the future, and this is how we left it off last time, with Scunthorpe making it into the Champions League as winners of the Premier League. The following season, unsurprisingly, it was Leeds, Leicester and West Ham. West Brom that finished at the top, Scunthorpe finishing in 4th place. So it'll be interesting to see if they can continue to be the best of the rest of the other teams in the league. The following year, again, we see Chelmsford actually move up to the best of the rest. Southampton, Middlesbrough and Sunderland all make it up there as well. Then the year after that, even more of those championship teams starting to displace the teams that we had put up into the top division, and it just continues to get worse for some of those teams. Even the mighty Scunthorpe now down in 16th and in a relegation scrap. And then finally we see Liverpool and Man City return to the top division, and Liverpool do manage to come back and win the championship. Scunthorpe managing to hang on in there ahead of some of the championship teams that had come back up. Chelmsford doing really well in 11th place as well. The following year, Man City take the title, and we see Arsenal and Manchester United join the crowd as well. The year after that, Chelsea actually win the title, but the top of that table suddenly looks very, very familiar. Chelmsford are down there. I think Scunthorpe must have got relegated recently, if we have a look. Yeah, Scunthorpe finished eventually bottom of the table there. And so at this stage in the game, the only teams remaining in there, well, the only team remaining in there from non-league is Chelmsford City, who seem to have done well to hang on to their position. If we look at their general information, their first season they finished 5th, and since then it's been a slow drop, hanging around mid-table for quite some time. They've got Livramento as their key player, so they've brought a few big names in, but you can see that table dominated by the old teams that you might expect. In the Championship, West Ham, Barnsley and Birmingham all joined up there. Aston Villa now in this division too. A few other teams, no, not really seeing any of them in there. In League One, Spurs have managed to go up, Everton have gone up, and other teams in there, yeah, no other Premier League teams in there. So we're still seeing the same steady march. Brighton and Fulham, the next two teams that have managed to go up. Everybody else still in the lower leagues. And in the National League, if we have a look, Brentford, Burnley, Palace, Wolves, Bournemouth and Sheffield are all in there, which means I think the only team not to get out of that lowest division is actually Luton. Let's just double check that. So in the north, we've got Luton there in 9th place. They're still now not able to get out of this division. They are absolutely stuck down there. And then in the south division, is there anybody left there? It looks like everybody has made it out of the Vanarama National League South, but Luton letting the Premier League teams down, being stuck in the Vanarama National League North. Now, if we maybe just have a look at how some of the other competitions have gone, obviously we have the FA Cup winners as well. So in previous seasons, we see Liverpool beat Cardiff to the first one in 23-24. They retained it. Arsenal got there. Southampton managed to win one in 26-27, which is a bit of a shock that one of the championship teams there. Leeds managed to win one as well, but otherwise no major surprises. And in the Carabao Cup, somehow Hull and Preston, the two teams to win it. I guess that's because the Premier League teams actually wouldn't have been in league football in order to play in this competition, which is why Leicester and Norwich were in the final the following season. But since then, it's been a return to normal business. Other than Sunderland and Blackburn making that final, the same teams have been winning that competition. An interesting matchup here where Liverpool did beat Scunthorpe to the title, and since then Leeds have been the most dominant team with 5 appearances, but an all-Manchester final in the most recent season. So not a huge surprise in the way that some of that has come about. Now, if we have a look at the Champions League, it'd be interesting to see if any English teams have got anywhere near the final here, and it doesn't look like that's been the case yet. So if we have a look maybe at, let's just have a look at the quarterfinals and see if any English teams have made it this far. It doesn't look so like the case at this point. If we have a look at the league phase here, you can see right at the bottom of this, the very first season after these teams qualified for the Champions League, you did have Southport, Yeovil, Torquay, Chelmsford and Scunthorpe right at the bottom alongside Hammarby and Zvezda. So none of them do well, but it looks like Chelmsford and Scunthorpe did manage to win a match, and I do just want to have a little look at what that match was in the Champions League. So defeats along the way, including at home against Barcelona, and then it was Chelmsford that they managed to beat 2-1. So one of the fellow English teams for Scunthorpe, and then Chelmsford also managed to win a match. So let's see who they managed to get the victory over in their Champions League group, and it was against Yeovil. So the only teams they beat were their own compatriots from England. Otherwise, no real surprises there. And if we have a look, quarterfinals, just see if any other English teams like Leeds managed to make it. And Leeds did make it to a quarterfinal, got into a semi-final, so did Liverpool actually, but Porto and Napoli were the ones to win there. The following year, nobody made it to the semis, but Arsenal appeared in there. Then nobody from England. Leeds with another quarterfinal appearance. But otherwise, that's about all that we've managed to see in the Europa League. In the Champions League, in the Europa League, we can see a bit more success. So Liverpool, Villa, Liverpool, Arsenal, City with 2 final appearances, no wins, but nobody in the last couple of years. And then in the Conference League as well, Aston Villa, Man City, Liverpool, all with titles. And interestingly, Hull City, Bristol City and Leeds all with final appearances as well. So a little bit of a change both in terms of which teams are doing well in England, but also which of them are going on to do well in Europe as well. And if we go back and just have a look at the Premier League one last time, one of the things I am interested to look at is also the transfer history of these leagues. So the first season there, you can see nothing was spent whatsoever. The next year, a bit more money spent, but mostly by the promoted teams. Next biggest was Scunthorpe with 1.6 million for someone from Fleetwood. Chelmsford suddenly popped up and started absolutely letting loose on the checkbook, which is why they're still up in that division, I imagine. Then you see Man City arrive, Sunderland up there spending money. Big transfers out there for some players to European teams. Man City also spending over 100 million on one player. But generally speaking, it's money coming into the league rather than the league spending money on other players. And you can see, even in the most recent season, no major shocks in where that money's going. So it'll be interesting to see how these players go on. What I'm going to do now is jump forward about 40, well, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years into the future, and we'll see how the league football is starting to shape up in England. And interestingly, where this competition reputation is, you can see it's dropped down to 4th now because of their poor coefficient ranking from recent finishes in Europe. So let's go forward a good couple of decades and see how English football is starting to shape up. Well, we are now in the year 2075, and you can see there's a little bit of change going on up here. Interestingly, Chelsea winning the most recent title. Leeds still up there in 5th place, even though we're so far forward in the future, and quite a few championship teams have made their way up as well. But there are none of the original non-league teams in the Premier League anymore. If we have a look just at the championship as well, I'm hoping to see Chelmsford. Yep, Chelmsford and Scunthorpe both still in the championship. They do seem to be towards the bottom end of that table, and if we have a look at, for example, Chelmsford's history. They have been going in and out the Prem, but largely a Championship team these days. And for Scunthorpe as well, the original champions of England, they're very much a Championship team and have finally got themselves established after dropping down into League One quite a few times. But they do have a new stadium, so they've definitely benefited from this swap. And if we drop down to some of the non-league tables as well, we'll just have a look, see if Luton managed to eventually make their way out. And it seems like they did. I think I put them into the North division of non-league football, and I'm just checking there's no other teams that have made their way down here, and indeed that is the case. So if we go up and have a look at the Vanarama National League as well, Luton were the lowest ranked team when we left off before, but it looks like they've got back into league football unless they've completely dropped out of it. Well, I still can't see them. And Wolves are down in League 2 at the moment as well. So they've definitely been struggling as a result of this. And yeah, Luton have managed to make it into League 1. So Wolves are actually the worst performing team that I can see. I can see Bournemouth up here as well. So Wolves now the worst performing team out of all the English ones. And if we have a look at the Premier League, you'll see it's back at the top of the competition rankings. In terms of previous winners, the same old teams doing really well. Aston Villa are in there. Leeds occasionally winning them, but look at Man City's dominance. Even after so many years out of the Premier League, they've come back and just re-established their dominance at the top of it with title after title and no real change in the way that this works out. If we maybe have a look at the FA Cup as well, then we can see in the past winners here that, again, not many surprises. Sunderland, Leeds are in there. Anybody else? Barnsley and Birmingham. Preston in there. So there's been a little bit of a change up in who's winning that competition, but not too much. And in the Carabao Cup, again, Ipswich, Birmingham, Leeds. Some of the familiar faces that are now in the Premier League. Coventry as well. Barnsley with 2 more. But really no major surprises. And then in the Champions League, I'm expecting to see a lot of English winners in this past winners list. And you can see it was the European teams doing well. Eventually, the title went to Manchester City in 2032-33, and they won it a few years later. And then they just started appearing in there on a regular basis. Liverpool managed to win one. Chelsea got one. More for City there. Man United eventually came about and won 4. Villa did manage to win another European Cup, which is nice for Aston Villa, and Chelsea City up there as well. But otherwise, no surprises in the winners of that competition. In the Europa League as well, Norwich managed to get one. A couple for Barnsley, Coventry in there, which is quite nice. The FA Cup winners appearing in this one a little bit. And then in the Conference League, any final surprises here? Charlton managed to win a Conference League, which is fun. Blackburn, Bristol City in there. But otherwise, Ipswich Town, it's the same faces we've seen before. Southampton in there as well. So really no major change in terms of who wins in English football. Even with several years out of the top division, all the big teams have the muscle and firepower to come back up to the top division. And all the non-league teams, I mean, a lot of them have had a little boost up to higher league positions, but not to the same benefit that we've seen the Premier League teams just charging back and winning the title again. So that will be it for today's experiment. Do drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more experiments coming up over the next week or so. And until next time, see ya.